but I do want to cover this article because this is a pretty good article that Margaret Kimberly wrote, and we didn't necessarily have to cover it with her here. That's why it wasn't the forefront of, because it's just a pretty good article, and we cover a lot of her articles anyway. But let's get to this here. Do I have it up? No, let me go back. All right, so this article here, so she writes this article here. It's entitled "Black Media Leaders Do the Democrats Dirty Work," and the graphic that's used for this article is Simone Sanders. And lately she's been calling for basically for everybody to fall in line, and that's kind of, I get the feeling that's kind of what spurred this article, or the idea from the article for this article by Margaret Kimberly. Now, I just cut out, instead of reading the whole article, I just cut out 5 paragraphs, and I'll just read the 5 paragraphs. I'll put the link of the article in the description box if you want to read the whole thing. But let's just read a little bit, Nick, because you and I talk about this all the time. We've done several segments. We call it, in this case, she's calling it Black Misleadership, but we normally would call this a Negro Servant segment or something like that. But we're going to go with Black Misleadership right now. Let me just read the first paragraph. The Black Misleadership class cast a very wide net. This group is not just composed of elected officials and organization heads. The misleaders have a media team too, and they have already begun the process of herding Black voters into the Democratic Party wing of the duopoly, getting them to cast ballots for Joe Biden without any question or complaint. I mean, I couldn't have written that any better. The media misleaders are getting an early start on the 2024 presidential campaign season. Despite the fact that Biden has no competition from any Democrat, and the party has already said that there will be no debates even if a competitor appears, Biden's weak approval rating and poor showing in the polls vis-a-vis Donald Trump has them running scared. They don't know if Trump's indictment will prevent him from running, or if Republican voters will choose him regardless of his legal complications. Now, this is where she really gets into some of the critique here. What are the misleaders to do under this circumstance, Nick? What our leaders should do? Let me answer that. What our leaders should do, if you're a Black leader, or if you're a Black person who is saying, I believe the Black community should go this way, I think RBN is that, if you want to consider us a leader. And then what would a Black misleader say? Now, what will we say to Joe Biden's poor numbers, or voting for Joe Biden, or this upcoming election? Is the stuff we've already been saying. Whoever wins doesn't matter. We're going to be in the community, helping the community regardless. Whoever wins doesn't matter. Don't vote blue or red. Take your vote and put it somewhere where you think it matters. Stop donating to these parties and donate to mutual aid organizations to help people directly. That's what leaders would say. Go ahead, Nick. Go ahead.
Just quickly interjecting, most workers in this country pay to vote. If you're an hourly worker, hell, even if you think you're slick and taking time off, you pay for time off, right? That's a benefit that has a value. That's our, and people like Ryan Grimm and many professional managerial class people who don't understand it, they're like, why not just vote then? Not only is it counterproductive to vote, but you are paying to vote. Why the hell will you pay to vote to vote for Jim Crow Joe? Like, imagine if this is what I went through before. Imagine if you're like an hourly worker and you decide to take PTO so you can go vote. That you're not getting paid. Or if you do get paid time off, you take paid time off. You that's a value you are taking. That's PTO that could have went to vacation.
Yep.
Or hell, if you don't have paid time off, you're not getting paid hourly to go vote. Either way, I've been in a position where I had no pay time off, where I went and voted, and instead of making money, I would never advise anyone to do that. Imagine you have family, but instead of having money and making money to feed your children, you stand in line for 2 hours. You make $15 now. You don't got $30 now. Can you pay to vote for Jim Crow Joe? Is that really worthwhile? And I phrase it this way because don't let people like Ryan Grimm and other progressives say stuff. Why not just spend your time and vote? Why? Come on, man. This is voting. Not that big of a deal. No, yes, it is. If you're not voting to advance your agenda, you're wasting your time. Paying for that may be worth it if you're advancing your agenda at least. But imagine paying for voting for someone against your agenda. That's absurd. That's our argument. Go ahead, CJ.
Absurd. Yeah, and I continue a couple of more paragraphs here, and we're just almost done here, and then we'll discuss a little bit. But what are the misleaders to do under the circumstance? And we describe what we would do. They have to begin the indoctrination process in earnest. This year, their work is especially important in the light of Biden's role as an accessory to Israel killing of more than 20,000 people in Gaza. And this is why I wanted to make sure I covered this, Nick, is that understand, Nick, if Biden cannot win with the black vote, who are they leaning on the most to make sure Joe Biden get elected? If it's the black vote, isn't the black leadership class the top priority for getting out the word, Nick? That's who has the top priority for getting out the word for this person.
They want to disenfranchise as many people as possible instead of having a horse race where you try to win as many people votes as possible. Both parties are trying to turn off as many people as possible, and whoever win the race to the bottom, I guess, is in charge. So the only people who really matter to them are suburban white women and other capitalists. Those are the only interests that matter. And you had, I think it was Chuck Schumer who said it. He for every every two working class people we lose, every one person working class we lose, we get two suburban people. It's an active strategy. They don't care about the poor. Let's completely get the poor out of politics in general. No one in the duopoly advocate for them. So if you're poor and you vote for us, good job, dumbass. But if you guys are voting third parties that we rigged the system for, as long as we win, it don't matter if we win with a 20% voter turnout. The only thing that matters is if we win, right? That's their ideology. They don't care if we have low voter turnout. They don't care that Congress has around an 18% approval rating and has for years.
That's ridiculous.
You think they keep them up at night, CJ, fam? You think Nancy Pelosi oh, we got 19% for no? She's like, nigga, they elect me every year, bro. Every year. I hope you guys understand my point, but go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, and I continue. I'm going to read this again because it's just a point that it just got to hit home. This year, their work is especially important in light of Biden's role as an accessory to Israel killing of more than 20,000 people. Imagine, Nick, it has to be awful to be a coon, to be a Negro servant, knowing that
that's a good quote out of context. Out of context.
I just said it back to myself. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead. I mean,
but it has to do something to you to know that you would be the person that would sell out your ancestors if this was the times of slavery times. You would be the one because you are in charge of selling out the Palestinian people and the people who are going to the genocide in order to get more black people to vote for them. So you're not only selling out the Palestinians, I almost take it as you selling out your ancestors because you're also trying to convince other black people to sell out people who are under a genocide, which to me is a slap in the face to our ancestors. So you are, in my opinion, doing that. It's just a despicable. I couldn't do it, Nick. I couldn't do what Simone Sanders does. I could not do that without being heavily drunk, heavily intoxicated. It's no way that I could do that.
I think I would die a young death. I think that shit is toxic for your soul. I don't have a scientific explanation for that. But if there are people who man, I can't wait to motherfucker sell out. But if you're I couldn't do this shit, like people who for example, get on YouTube and say stuff they don't believe. Imagine you guys know how many subscribers we would have if we was black Republicans. If we were revolutionary blackout and we were telling you guys, this is why you should vote for Trump. Trump has a black agenda. You know how great Trump would be. Nigga, we would have 500,000 subscribers if we did that shit. But what's the point? You know what I mean? That's how I feel. I don't even understand the point. If I'm going to say some shit that I don't believe for money, I get back in sales. It makes no sense to do this. Don't make no sense to be in politics if you want to do that. It's my opinion. Go ahead, CJ.
It's funny. That's the reason I got out of sales. I got
Yeah,
like
for sure.
like it was hard for me because it was hard for me to say stuff that wasn't true, and I told them I
Yeah.
will always be getting written up and shit like that. So, but yeah, let me finish this. Only a couple, one paragraph left to go here. Where I leave? Oh, right here. The outrage felt by millions of people impacted Biden, whose approval rating is now only at 37%, an indication of peril for a sitting president. Not to worry, though, Biden has help from black pundits like Roland Martin, who, in response to Arab Americans declaring opposition to the man who is killing their people, raised the Trump specter right on cue. And this is a quote from Roland Martin, which we never cover because his target audience is a lot older. But he says a lot of like a lot of Negro
If
service
that's the
shit
guy I
on
think
that.
it is, yeah, he's one of the worst.
Yeah, he is terrible.
They all
But
the same people. They all the same people.
yeah.
Even if you're not talking about the guy I'm thinking about, I promise you they're the same. Anyway, go ahead.
Here's a quote from Roland. He says,
Actually, click that account so I can see. Yeah. If I see, I'm curious. Yeah. That is the guy I was thinking of. Go ahead, CJ. You're right.
Okay.
Go ahead. I was curious.
So this is the quote. Well, and he says, Saeed and Mehdi Hassan, I totally get it. I guess Mehdi Hassan was saying something about what's happening, like what Joe Biden is doing is going to only hurt him at the voting, at the voting ballot, at the ballot box. That's what they were saying. And then Roland Martin responds to them with this. Well, Hassan, I totally get it, but Trump has made clear his Muslim ban goes into effect on day one, and he will deport all Palestinians and immigrants who support them. His first time will look like recess compared to the second one. That's Roland Martin. Go ahead.
For one, why do they even believe Trump was a liar? You gotta remember, Trump said a lot of shit that he didn't actually fucking do. And can he even legally do this? Like, there's so many things. There's so many reasons why Trump couldn't get accomplished by what he wanted to, because of the way our government is structured, because the separation of powers and all that stuff. So when they do these fear mongering nonsense, it's a joke, because whenever there's a Republican president, they sell this idea like they're all powerful and they can do whatever they want. But then whenever Joe Biden, the Democrat, is president, like, oh my God, we're helpless. Nothing we can do. We want to help you, but we can't do it. Hey, you guys really believe this? And one last thing I'm going to say on this point, and on the point on how the duopoly works together, right? The duopoly works together because Republicans are always there to help bail out Democrats and vice versa. So right now, Republicans see Joe Biden losing a ton of Arab support. They losing the young vote. So what do Republicans do? They go out and say, let's ban all Arabs. Let's ban all Muslims. You guys see how this is a fucking balancing act? And I know this my entire life. Whenever Democrats really fuck up, remember Barack Obama, there was a generation of young people leaving the Democratic Party. And then what happened? Trump. Also, we're going to build a wall. They always do this. They always purposely escalate so they can have a perfect balancing act. Because to be honest, if you look at what Trump has been saying, and we look at what Republicans have been saying on Palestine, it is batshit crazy. But they have to be batshit crazy to try to scare people back to the Democratic Party. It's a very complicated balancing act. I really hope I'm doing a good job explaining. You know what I mean? Like, whenever the Democrats fuck up, the Republican has to say something crazy to help the Democrats. Whenever and vice versa, essentially. I'll wrap it. I think you guys get it.
No. That's true, because you remember the famous quote that we've always talked about from Joe Biden. I want a healthy Republican Party. Something to that effect. Exactly. Something like, I want a healthy Republican Party. And to your point, I think what you're saying, to put it in basic terms, is that when the other party sees the other party, the opposite party, kind of struggling, they go, I need to struggle too, so that I don't appear way better than the opposite side. This tells you it's a dance. On that point, it's a dance. Go ahead.
On that point, you guys know why the Republicans start going super hard on LGBTQ issues again? Like, Trump ran. Remember when Trump ran on being the most pro LGBTQ president of all time? What the fuck happened? What happened? Because Democrats needed the help. The Republican for a while, like, oh, all right, whatever, and then fucking get the LGBT whatever issues over. And then all of a sudden, Democrats had a horrible record of Barack Obama to defend. They had Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden as leadership, Nancy Pelosi as leadership. So they had to get Democrats a bone. And all of a sudden, they started engaging in anti-trans, unserious bullshit. And remember, we had like the MAGA communists, we had right-wing populists who thought we was wrong. They were like, we said that none of that culture warrior shit is appealing to the working class. And what happened? Republicans literally got blasted in 2022 and 2023. And there was a poll that I reported on that showed that the anti-woke shit that Republicans did backfired. It like there were people who even conservatives are like, you guys are insulting my intelligence. So remember, our bill was right. And the MAGA communists was wrong because the MAGA communists believed that you had to engage in culture war to win over the workers. And the polls and all the data showed that was wrong. When they did it, they lost support. Trump is still unpopular. He most likely to beat Biden, but that doesn't mean he's popular. He's still disliked by the American people. So, like we said before, engaging that shit will just turn off people who care mostly about their material needs. So Republicans did that instead of, imagine an alternate scenario where Republicans didn't do anything to support workers, but that was the main thing they leaned into, were pretending they care about workers. Imagine if Republicans leaned into pretending they care about ending the wars, but they don't. Instead, they engage in the culture war to give Democrats a chance. I know that was a long point to make, but I feel like I had to be
it's the you know what I mean? It's to level out to ensure that we keep this a lesser of two evil game, because we can't, if you don't make this a lesser of two evil game, then that throws off this whole uniparty. But back to the go ahead.
This is really quick, but couldn't they wait to repeal Roe versus Wade after 2024? There's a point I made before. Wouldn't it be a better strategy? Because the Supreme Court justices is not changing. You're going to have the same amount of Supreme Court justices after 2024 than before. So a good strategy would be to wait till after 2024, wait till a Republican wins, and then overturn Roe v. Wade. But notice the Republicans did it during the election year when polls showed that Roe v. Wade was popular. Why the fuck would you do that unless you want to help the Democrats? And it did in the midterms. But go ahead, CJ.
That is a fantastic point. But I'll continue with the article. And it finishes with talking about Roland Martin. It says, notice that Martin makes only a cursory attempt to acknowledge the justifiable anger in the Arab American community. He claims to totally get it. They do this all the time, Nick, where you go, man, I'm struggling this. You list a whole bunch of things. You talk for 10 minutes, and then they go, I totally get it. You know what this is? I totally get it. And then they start talking about how they don't get it. You know what this is, Nick? This is literally a sales tactic. And you may have heard this in a different version. This is literally a sales tactic where it's essentially saying you never take no for an answer. Absolutely. So what do you do when they go, oh, well, I don't have any money? You go, I totally get what you mean. I'm struggling too. And then you combat that. You combat that obstacle. This is a sales tactic. I taught this shit to many salespeople. Go ahead.
No, perfect example. Go ahead, CJ. I don't want to.
I was done just to say, like, so understand, propaganda is selling. So a lot of propaganda uses a lot of selling techniques that you see in the sales industry. And when I see it, I like to point it out, and I see it here. And when they say he claims to totally get it, but then brings up Trump and thereby proves that he is dismissing the empathy, I should say, towards Biden. Roland Martin is joined by Simone Sanders Townsend, a former aide to Vice President Kamala Harris, who predictably walked into a gig on MSNBC after leaving her political position. I must ask before I read this last paragraph, you notice, Nick, why is it such a hot job to go on media after working for the White House? Why is that such a normal thing. We saw it with Pierre Jean-Pierre. You know she's gonna go back to the media. We see it with Psaki. We see it with Simone Sanders. We see it with Nicole Harris. Nicole Wallace. We see it with Joe Scarborough. Why is that? Because the ruling class only trusts people who have proven they're willing to sell out in these spaces, and these people who have been in government have proven that, and that's why they're willing to put them in these media mouthpiece spaces. One last paragraph here. MSNBC is the propaganda arm of the Democratic Party, and Simone Sanders runs with the Democratic playbook by frightening voters who want to vote for a third-party candidate. The graphic in a recent program reads, why voting for third-party candidates could be a triumph for Trump in disguise. And like I said, go read this entire article. And we actually covered that video, and I can't remember what segment. We covered the video they're talking about. Case Study QB clipped this actual segment that she's speaking about in this article, Nick. And it's pretty despicable when I see these black people doing this. But go ahead, Nick. It sounds like you want to try.
This is something I take on. It's one of our most important battles, is calling out the misleaders in our community. Like, you gotta know, we call out everyone, but we're not leaving the people that is selling out our community untouched. In fact, that's my number one focus. The first article I ever wrote in Substack was a scathing takedown of black liberalism. And you gotta know, Black Agenda Report focused on this, and I cannot wait, especially until next year, when we continue to take down these sellouts. Like, we exposed Nina Turner, we exposed Cori Bush, all these people who pretend to be pro-black, but they supporting Nazis in Ukraine, for example. Like, we have zero tolerance for it. Zero tolerance. I don't know if you guys know, Rome talked about it on the show. Like, Rome and Nina Turner had a good relationship at one point. Because just like me and Rome was on the Bernie campaign. He met Nina, they were friends. But you guys know, Rome and RB, we didn't let the fact that we had previous contact with Nina stop us from calling her out when she started doing some openly sellout shit. You know what I mean? Supporting the Ukraine war, for example, endorsing Jim Crow Joe. And honestly, it's not very fair, and I don't agree with it in general. But there's a reason why we got to go after these people, because it's most effective when people in their own community hold their sellout accountable, right? Because there's always this slippery dodge that people like Nina Turner can use. You saw that Nina used it against Jimmy Dore. Oh, you called me out. You must be anti-black. You gotta notice how Nina used that against Jimmy.
Yeah.
Cori Bush used it against her critics. So the bullshit, but you know how that's why they can't engage with us. Because they can't say that, RBN, you guys only criticize because you're anti-black. You don't like Eric Adams because you're anti-black. That's what Eric Adams say all the time, guys. Like, Eric Adams used to say the reason why he get hard media coverage is because he was black. I don't know if you saw that, CJ. He said it all the time.
Yeah, he says it all the time.
That's what they do. They can't use that shit against us. But most importantly, important for us to hold ourselves accountable, because they're the number one threat to our communities. My last thought of the stream, there was a giant boom of black mayors over the last few years. You have black mayors in the largest cities in America, and there was black capitalists who celebrated this fact. You want to know what happened ever since the takeover of big black mayors on these cities? The expansion of the police state. Yeah, the police state expand in these cities. Quentin Lucas in my city is another example. Eric Adams, Keisha Lance Bottom in Atlanta. There's all these names that not all of them necessarily important to remember, but in the last few years, if you didn't know, there was a wave of black mayors. I did a hotspot video about this a long time ago. Ever since black mayors took over the biggest cities in America, black wealth has fallen. Police have gotten bigger. Black homelessness increased. But tell me more about why we should be so worried about Marjorie Taylor Greene. You gotta know, I don't go after Marjorie Taylor Greene because Marjorie Taylor Greene don't fucking govern me. We got Quentin Lucas, the Black Congressional Caucus. You got black misleadership classes in Atlanta, in New York, and California that is destroying our lives, and y'all fucking worry about Marjorie Taylor Greene? I'm not saying she's not good. I'm not saying she's not a threat in any way, but she's way less important than Keisha Lance Bottoms, Quentin Lucas, and Eric Adams.